Business Focus with Kudzi Sharara on the Champions League Breakfast.
Good morning and welcome to Business Focus, proudly brought to you by POSB. Simply possible. Good morning to you, Kudzi. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Tinashe. Good morning, everyone.
Great. How was your weekend?
My weekend was all right. I went to the fields, Munda. To make sure that things are in place. So,
great. All right, Kudzi, let's begin with the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange trading update for Friday.
Thank you, Tinashe. So it was a down day for the market. That's on Friday, with the all-share index losing 1.35%. The top 10 index dropping 1.92%, although some stocks in the medium cap index were positive, resulting in that index closing 0.21% to the good. There were only two counters that recorded gains, and Tanganda continues with its bullish streak, up by 14.92%. We all know what's happening with Tanganda. The company has announced that it is planning to move from the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange and get listed on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. And there are also plans for them to raise 7.7 million into the business. Of course, we'll get full information with regards to that transaction once everything is in place. I'm sure they will issue a circular, and probably it will be put to a vote since they want to raise 7.7 million US dollars on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. So the counter is now up by 95% since the beginning of the year. So since the announcement, Tinashe, the counter has been going up by the maximum allowed, which is 15% every day. Yeah, with very little in terms of trades, not much trading, although Friday it was at least a little bit reasonable. So Friday, 14.92% gain on Tanganda. And I'm sure these are investors that are looking at buying a US dollar asset, but using local ZiG to buy that asset. So we will continue to track Tanganda. The Nampek also positive by 6.6%. Again, we know the story with Nampek. Recently, Nampek South Africa, which was the major shareholder in that company, announced that it is planning to sell it to TSL. So they are selling their stake to TSL, which means that Nampek will be locally owned. It was owned by South African company Nampek, and now it's going to be sold to TSL. And given the price that was announced that they are willing to pay, it showed that they are willing to pay a premium to this particular transaction, but investors are not phased by that. They continue to pile into that counter. It's now up by 270% since the introduction of ZiG, and it continues on that upward trajectory, gaining 6.66%. That's Nampek. So these are some of the things, Tinashe, that drive stocks. People always say, what are the fundamentals that drive stocks up or down? And there are many, but these are some of them. When there is this corporate action that is the company is taking, investors look at that decision, for example Tanganda, to say, okay, its movement to the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, is it a positive move? Its plans to raise 7.7 million, is it a positive move? And then investors will see if they believe that the company is likely to do better going forward, then they will try and buy that counter whilst it's still cheap. Sometimes not fear of missing out, because when you see a counter going up like that 15% every day, you're like, okay, what am I missing here? But before you find out what exactly you're missing, you jump into that stock and you also ride the wave. Sometimes you get bent though.
Okay, Kudzi, you spoke about the company had to delist from VFX to Tanganda. Anditi macompanies aya anenge tinenge tirimo isiteme ma-shareholders.
Yes.
What if the shareholders vakaramba
kuti
hatisikuda kuti timove from VFX to ZSE?
Yeah, if I'm not sure if this particular one will be put to shareholders, but if it does, and if, for example, any transaction anyway, if it is put to the EGM, extra general meeting, if your shareholders say no, then it's not going to happen. Yes, it's there, because that's why it's put to vote. But what normally happens now, if you are clever in terms of corporate finance and corporate handling these corporate issues, you look for your major shareholder. you engage them first.
Convince.
By the time it comes to everybody else, every other shareholder, including minority shareholders, the decision has already been made, and the major shareholder is likely to vote for. So it will not be clever for any management or directors of a company to try and bring this without having spoken first to the major shareholders, because they will vote and then you would have
at the end of the day power is the major shareholders. Exactly. The remaining CAA.
Yes, and unfortunately that's the reality. For as long as we have got a major shareholder, they can outvote you, right? So yeah, that's so you find out, for example, let's say a company, the major shareholder, let's say it owns, let's say 30%, right? If it owns 30%, it might then look for other bigger shareholders, maybe someone with 15, someone with 10, so that they can cross the 50% threshold, or sometimes mangoma votes on at least 75%. So no supporter in that initiative. That's why I said they do a road show, talking to their major shareholders, guys, this is what we are trying to do. And wait to iron out any differences that will be there, wait to fine-tune the transaction. Then when it comes to vote, I two shares outvote, although you're still allowed to say your views with regards to that transaction.
But could say the major shareholder, like say for example into Tanganda, and then the remaining parts of the shares, the major shareholder probably has got 70% stake.
Yes.
And the remaining is 30%. You're going to take off 30% one. Is it allowed to own one of this major shareholder and another individual and go 30% you are one?
Yeah, it's allowed, because what happens is and my shares anenge chitengeswa every day. Kutori nemumwe munhu ari kuaccumulate ma shares. Anditi kunopedzera kwaita kune mamwe anonzi ma hostile takeover america nakambozvinzo zvekuti munhu anenge achitenga ma shares mbichana wotozoshamisa kuti kwana ndingane ma shares akatoenzana neya major shareholder, especially if you are a major shareholder and you don't like the situation in National Foods, for example, where you have got I think the one of the major shareholders, the INSCO guys, the INSCO, they own about 37%, roughly 37%, right? Then you've got Tiger Brands owning about 37%, and let's say there is another shareholder owning about, let's say 15% or 20% rather, 20%. Imagine this other shareholder and 20% ongoenda nerweseri obva anotenga mashares eTiger Brands 37% iyaya ava veinsco vasingaziziye handiti. Imagine kuti patove nemumwe munhu atove ne50 something percent atove major shareholder inenge yatove sort of like a hostile takeover inenge yakutoitika. Yes.
Right.
So you find out kuti shareholders of these companies, they normally track kuti chichi kumbetika mashares vavo, so that they are not caught by surprise kungoesekererana vakungoona kwatove nemunhu ane mashares akawanda akutoita major shareholder. So I've seen, like for example, I remember I bought some Tigere rate shares, the real estate investment trust, and I was speaking to one of the directors there about another issue, and he said, I saw your name popping up on our share register. I mean, they look at that to make sure that and yeah, you need to be on guard.
All right, remember, this is Business Focus, proudly brought to you by POSB. Still in the spirit of Customer Service Week, going above and beyond. The People's Own Savings Bank, POSB, is glad to advise you on the introduction of a new toll-free line. POSB has just introduced a new toll-free line to improve your banking experience. That's right, you can now reach out to POSB anytime 24/7 by simply dialing 223. Simply dialing 223. Whether you have queries, need assistance, you want feedback, or you have any complaint, POSB is here and happy to help you at no cost. So remember, for all your banking needs, just dial 223 and get the support you deserve anytime you need it. POSB, simply possible. It is Business Focus. There's a question from Pauline Marasha Kudzi, who says that, so about a regulatory environment, are there any tax incentives or benefits for investors on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange?
On the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, in terms of incentives, I wouldn't say there are any benefits. Why do I say so? Because when you look at when the VFX was introduced, so on the ZSC they were already ma taxes anobadarwa and so on and so forth, and ma fees anobadarwa. But when they created the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, it came with some incentives. In the sense that some of the fees that you pay on the ZSC were lower when you then pay them on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. Some of the taxes that you pay on the ZSC are not there on the
VFX.
On the VFX. So the VFX came with these incentives, but maybe because I'm not sure when the ZSC started whether there have been any incentives that have been put in place, but maybe it's a question I will pose to Justin and his team at the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange if there are any other incentives that I might have missed.
Okay. Yeah. Sydney Murato in Toronto, Canada, says that is there any difference between stakeholder and shareholder, and what their roles, and are they the same?
Yeah. So if it's a company, a shareholder is an owner or a party owner of the company. So you own a certain percentage in the company.
Like me, ndakatenga 50 shares, I'm a shareholder.
Yeah, a shareholder, whether it's one share or it's a million shares, we are a shareholder. But when it comes to stakeholders, it's almost everyone, every touch point of the business that you interact with. It involves your customers, it involves even the shareholders. Shareholders they are part of the stakeholders. Suppliers are also stakeholders. Regulators are also stakeholders. Government is a stakeholder. Almost anyone that
everyone who deal
is a stakeholder. Yes.
Okay.
But shareholder muridzi wecompany anovewo zvakare kana takutaura ma-stakeholders, shareholders anotopindawo ipapapo. When you say I need to take care of my stakeholders, yeah, also including the shareholders.
Saka nofanisa kuti kana ndine mashares, say for example kutanganda, ndichitotaura neboys dzangu taura kuti shamwari company yangu ida kutobva pa-VFX itoenda pa-stock exchange, aish katombomhanyira mumameetings acho.
Ndinomhanyira kuAGM izvozvizvi. There's a transaction that we want to do as a company, and I'm one of the I need to go and vote in favor or against this resolution that they want to make. Yes.
All right, Kudzi, we are slowly getting to the year end. This is the month of November. Anything major we can still expect?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Tinashe. For an economy, for the Zimbabwean economy, I think, yeah, we could be surprised with another currency depreciation. We have continued with the currency depreciation since it was sort of like devalued. It has continued. We are almost like another 14% depreciation since that 43% depreciation. So it's likely to continue. Why do I say so? Because I think there is pressure on the agriculture front. There is need for government to spend. We heard recently that input providers are owed about 300 million, and some of them are saying, no, we can't provide government with inputs for its projects or programs before we get paid. So if the government coffers are dry or are constrained, then we are likely to see another rate currency depreciation there. It's again November is the budget month. Professor Mthuli Ncube is expected to present his budget at the end of this month.
2025 budget.
Yes, the 2025 budget. And I think we are also looking forward to see how is he going to handle things. There are so many issues in terms of the ease of doing business, the cost of doing business that people are still not happy with, and are looking forward to the 2025 budget just to see.
But what could be the major thing that probably you'd expect Professor Mthuli Ncube to address in terms of the budget?
Yeah, for me, the biggest concern, which for me is still there, is how do we grow our tax base from collecting 4 billion to collecting 8 billion? How do we get to have everyone who is economically benefiting in Zimbabwe to contribute their fair share of taxes to the fiscus? Because for as long as government is collecting insufficient funds for whatever is needed, then issues of currency, challenges, volatility, issues of hospitals that are not adequately equipped, and issues of roads that are pothole infested. They will continue for as long as we are not playing our part. So you could say, I not by the taxi for whatever reason, right? But to catch up with us, with all of us, when we then face these the roads that are not good, when we are faced with hospitals that are not adequately equipped, it will come back to bite us all if we don't contribute. So there is need for a budget that widens the tax net. The minister has tried it before, and of his target, whatever target he was expecting to collect, you only collected 3%. So imagine you're missing your target by 97%. That's not acceptable. And I think as Zimbabweans, we need to reflect on that. Say, okay, what are the reasons why people are not contributing to the taxes? Let's iron out those, right, and make sure that everybody contributes.
All right, Kudzi, the last question that I've got on WhatsApp is from Simba, who says, is Zimbabwe Stock Exchange a private entity or it's a government-controlled entity?
It has got a mixture of shareholders. Stockbrokers are also shareholders. Government is also a shareholder there. There are quite a number of shareholders that are there, but I think government has got a major stake there. However, the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange they are planning to list on the ZSE. I'm not sure on the ZSE or on the VFX, but they are planning to list as a company so that even us, we can also buy shares into the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. But at the moment, it has got various shareholders that are there. So yeah.
This one says, Kudzi, we need to. Can you let us know, but time media the legitimacy of Zimbabwe Stock Exchange and the VFX? Maybe we'll discuss that tomorrow. And find out more. But all the same thing, Kudzi, thank you so much for Business Focus, brought to you by POSB. Simply possible. Remember the toll-free line, it's 223. Just dial 223 and you'll be able to get in touch with POSB for anything that you want helped, or you can come through on their WhatsApp number 0732 200-889, 0732-200-889, or send in an email on customersupport@posb.co.zw.
This Business Focus was brought to you by the People's Own Savings Bank, POSB. #Convenience made simply possible.